Hey everyone, it's Jodine, and I am very, very, very excited for the next guest speaker that we're going to bring on here. She's someone that I definitely adore, and so grateful that our paths have crossed. And I am going to just real quickly read her bio real quick, and then we're going to bring her on, and she's going to be speaking today about breathing techniques and how we can use breathing techniques to help heal as we move past this self-sabotage and everything that we've been talking about. So very, very excited today to be bringing on camera with me, Miss Julia. And of course, when you're looking for something, you can't find it. So hang on, bear with me just 1 second. This is live, even though it's recording. What did I do with? Okay, everybody breathe in. Here we go. Good grief, I was going past it. Life is real. Okay, so we have Julia RUDAKOVA, and she is a holistic health practitioner. She is a naturopath, a herbalist, a neuroemotional technique and NLP practitioner, and a functional breathing educator. She is passionate about living to our full potential, choosing to live with a purpose. So I am going to bring Julia on, and she's going to be speaking into today. And so Julia, I just want to say welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so ecstatic that you are here and so honored for you to be speaking today. So with that, I am going to go ahead and turn the mic over to you, and welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'm so happy to be here and talk to you and the audience about breathing and how it can be helpful for many, many things. And we're talking about self-sabotage and breaking the vicious cycle of going into this self-sabotage pattern in life. So this is what we talk about today, and how breathing can be actually very, very useful as the very first step in this process of reclaiming your identity, what you want from life, setting goals, things like that. And you may ask, how is breathing can be helpful? Because, you know, you breathe automatically. What's with the breathing? What's the hype about? And this, for me, as a holistic health practitioner, is the very first thing that I talk to my clients about, even before nutrition, before NLP, before the emotional work. First is because out of all the things that are important to our health in life, breathing is number one. It comes from the rule of 3. You know how we can't live without food for 3 days, without food for 3 weeks, water for 3 days, and breath, it's only up to 3 minutes, right? So it's one of the first essentials. That's the one. We come into this life with the first breath and leave with the last. So it's one of the fundamentals, really. And the importance of our breathing, yes, it is automatic, but at the same time, you can regulate your breath, you can direct it, you can reclaim control of your breathing pattern with your willpower, right? With your muscles. So when you learn to do that, you will learn how to get control and balance your nervous system, right? The nervous system is something that runs behind all physiological processes in your body, right? And it consists of sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic, you probably know about this, it's fight or flight, right? When you need to run away from a predator. It's when you breathe shallowly with your chest, you breathe fast, kind of an over breathing mode. And it's there for a reason. As I said, when you run for your life, when you need this extra boost of oxygen, very temporarily, very short term, then you do this pattern of breathing, and then it helps. However, if this pattern of breathing becomes a habit, if it's part of your day-to-day life, then it becomes a problem, because you feed this loop of sympathetic nervous system response, and it plays out in your digestion, in your thinking, in your feeling, right? So the parasympathetic nervous system is the opposite, right? It's your rest and digest. And that's what we want to achieve with establishing, and I call it functional breathing pattern, because the functional thing for me is when the body maintains homeostasis, which is a fancy word for balance, easily, right? When there is ease. When there is ease in physiology, there is ease in other things, right? So the parasympathetic breathing is breathing deep in your belly, right? So for example, probably most of you have attended a yoga class, right? Or Pilates, things like that. And they like to say, breathe deeply, right? Take a deep breath. And people do this, right? And they inflate the chest and take this big, big breath. So I call it big, shallow breathing. Shallow because you inflate your chest, right? So it's not a deep breath. A deep breath, it comes from your diaphragm, the diaphragm that sits underneath the rib cage, right? And that's the main breathing muscle. So that one and the intercostal muscles, they're between your ribs, they breathe for you, right? That's what you need to use for breathing. And a lot of people that I see in my practice, their intercostal muscles are quite relaxed, what I call them. Yeah, I don't want to put them out of labels, but they're not so willing to work anymore. So we need to retrain them. And the diaphragm is very confused in most people. Doesn't really know how to function because it hasn't been used much. So again, we use that and we do retraining, muscle retraining exercises, right? And it's very easy. I can talk to you about one of them, but you can do it at home. You don't need any special tools. When you work with breathing, that's the brilliance of it. You know, the brilliance is in simplicity. You don't need anything else. You just need your body and you need to know how to use it, right? And as many people ask me, you know, well, it's the body knows what to do. Well, yes and no. It does know, but it also goes into the mode of survival most of the time. So with all the toxins that we have in foods, in the air, in the environment, and even like off-gassing from new furniture, right, you know, interferes in the quality of air. The quality of air becomes less than desirable, and your breathing will be affected from that. So many, many things may affect, even things that happen in your life, the emotional part of your life that will affect your breathing pattern. So, and if it's not addressed, if you feed this sympathetic nervous system loop, then it becomes a habit and your muscles have the memory and they start doing this as their, you know, base kind of, you know, line. And that's why we need to interfere and remind the body what it's supposed to do, ideally, right? When everything is kind of balanced, when the air is pure and, you know, you aim at eating organic food or, you know, good quality things without much preservatives, colorings, things like that. So yes, that's what I normally talk about. And why this is important, because, you know, before the our meeting, we talked about self-sabotage, right? And how this is important in breaking that vicious cycle of self-sabotage. Sometimes when we work on ourselves, we do a lot of work, we work with a coach, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant to have a support network around you, right? People who know how to support, know how to use the right language. Somehow it still goes back to square one, and that's where you may find useful to use breathing, right? And bring yourself back into parasympathetic nervous system response, because we have enough stresses in life, right? There's so many stresses around us, and sympathetic nervous system is challenged daily, right? It's exercised daily. It doesn't need any more input than that. So working more towards parasympathetic nervous system regulation gives you the chance to stand in that. It's even close to the ring of power sort of exercise, yeah, when you go back to the blueprint of health, you know, when you breathe correctly, your pH in the body changes, you know, to the optimal one. So it regulates the pH, it regulates blood pressure, it dilates the blood vessels, it helps to regulate even blood sugar levels, right? And that's your metabolism. So when that is balanced, then nothing is kind of disturbing that, and it's easier to take control of the emotional state, and it's easier to work from that balanced state with anything, with, as I said, goal setting, be it NLP, be it any technique that you want to use for your self-development. So that's why I see it as the basic, most important step, really.
Awesome, awesome. And you noted that there's one technique that you can take with. Is there like a little exercise that we could practice real quick, or they could go?
Absolutely, absolutely. So as I said, a lot of clients that I see for breathing retraining, I see that their diaphragm is a bit confused, right? And there are 4 principles of breathing. It should be through the nose, because mouth breathing is the sympathetic when you run away from danger, right? So it should be through the nose. It should be gentle. And by gentle, I mean, when you sit next to a person, sometimes you can hear them breathe, right? So gentle is when you can't hear yourself breathe, right? And others shouldn't be hearing you breathing, right? So nasal, gentle, slow, right? So ideally there is a golden ratio for breathing. If you breathe in to the count of 4 and breathe out to the count of 6. And did you notice that you breathe out longer, ideally? And the reason for that is that your breath in is driven by sympathetic nervous system, and breath out is driven by parasympathetic nervous system. So when you breathe out longer, when you exhale longer, then you give this input towards parasympathetic nervous system, you activate it more, right? And that's what we need. So you breathe through the nose, you breathe gently, you breathe slowly, and you breathe with the diaphragm. So it's only 4 things that are super important. And as I mentioned, I just want to give you this tip how to retrain the diaphragm. So the best thing to do is to lie down on the carpet, rug, or yoga mat, and with your knees bent so that your back is nice and flat and supported. And you take a heavy book off your bookshelf, something really nice, you know, like an encyclopedia or a dictionary, things like that.
I don't know if we have those anymore, but yeah.
I know we have Google, right?
I was going to say that does not mean you put your cell phone on your legs.
Okay, something, what's the current? Okay, Harry Potter, if you have one, they're big books.
Harry Potter, or even cookbooks. Some cookbooks are really big and heavy. So
some cookbooks, yes. So great, hardcover book, and put it on your tummy, just below the rib cage. And you start breathing slowly through the mouth, gently. And the idea is that you purposefully move your tummy muscles to move the book up and down. So you breathe in, the book goes up, you breathe out, the book goes down, right? So that's kind of the first step to wake up the diaphragm a little bit, yeah, by utilizing the abdominal muscles as well. And then once you get to the point where you got it, where it's kind of, it flows, because some people, interestingly enough, they have reverse breathing pattern. Is when they breathe in and the tummy kind of deflates. So it's not uncommon to have that. So that's why the book, that's why, because it also brings the focus to breathe in, that weight, that extra weight brings the focus to your breath. And then you notice your lower ribs and you start moving your lower ribs. They open up and they, because when you look at animals, right, cats, dogs, how do they breathe? They don't breathe with their bellies, their bellies don't go up and down. They breathe like this, like, the whole rib cage expands and contracts. And that's how we are designed to breathe. And in yogic traditions, they talk about breathing with the spine, right? So ideally, you can imagine that your spine expands a little bit when you breathe in, right? So everything expands, allowing for that oxygen to go in, right? And breathe, then contracts to push everything out. So that's one of the most important things that you can do for yourself, to slow down your breath, to breathe through the nose and with the diaphragm. It's not really very complicated unless you really have kind of a stuck diaphragm or things like that and you need a bit more support. But these are the things that you can do for yourself in the comfort of your own home, right? And yeah, do it at the end of the day after, you work with people, right? After you've been out, kind of to balance yourself. Just lie down, put the timer for 10 minutes. That's enough. 10 minutes is all you need.
Wow, I love that. I was just thinking of the big books that I have, and I took a horticulture class, so I had an encyclopedia of like all the, and 35 years ago it was like $350. It was like a huge, investment back then. I'm sure it's thousands of dollars now, but I'm thinking, I should pull that out and definitely get that diaphragm going again. So that's
right.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think that, it's really important, as a whole, we talk about, how we can reprogram the subconscious mind. That's the whole concept of, this 3-day challenge. But there are other, strategies that can help you as well. And I think the breath work is really, really important. I always, whenever I start my sessions, we always, just reset with a good deep breath, so that everybody can, clear their mind. And, I love, in fact, I was sitting here like, pulling my diaphragm in and out, and I'm like, man, that sucker's out of out of shape, 5 kids later. And, and it's interesting too, of just your mobile, when you're, because when I owned restaurants and stuff, you're walking around, you're moving around, and you're hustling all the time, and then you come behind a computer and you just sit and you realize like all those muscles that you naturally just are using, all of a sudden they're like, I don't have to do this, and it's like all of a sudden you just realize how much you're out of a shape. And I think breathing is something that's really important, and I think it's underutilized in all of our health practitioners. I don't think it gets enough credit because it is so automatic. Our subconscious controls it and we don't have to think about it. But at the same time, I think if we could train people to use, the breathing more often, we could alleviate some stress in the world. And, people could be definitely in a healthier state of mind as well.
That's right. And I recently read this fact about the fact that we hold our breath before we open an email. So there are so many little stresses in life that contributes to this dysfunctional breathing pattern, right?
Yeah.
So it's amazing. Like our modern life is much more complex, I think, than life 50, 60 years ago, pre-internet, this crazy pace, I think, that we have now.
Yeah.
And it's one like I'm not against it. I think we're going to evolve through that. That's one of the challenges. I think it's beautiful and brilliant. However, yeah, knowing how to self-regulate, yeah, to be in tune with your body, and breath work helps so much in that. And there is also a second component of breath work is to bring the chemical balance, because there is as I said, blood chemistry that's affected by breathing, you know, whether it's functional or synthetic nervous system breath on a daily basis, right? So retraining the receptors in the respiratory center of the brain to the correct ratio of gases in the blood, that's another part, you know, mostly for people with like apnea and asthma, but also for those with anxiety who like live in this very sympathetic nervous system overdrive, right? So that's another that I wanted to mention.
Well, great. Well, you know, and I'm just thinking anybody who's went into the delivery room and not had an epidural and, you know, learned how to breathe. I mean, that's to me, I had 5 daughters, and it wasn't until the last one that I had an epidural. So they were all natural, no, except for the final one. And I mean, you want to learn about the power of breathing and how, you know, it can keep you centered. And, you know, I mean, birthing a child is excruciating pain. And when you learn how to control that breathing and how to, you know, back then they called it Lamaze, and my daughter number 4 is pregnant now. And I was like, are you going to Lamaze? And she's like, what's that? You know, and I'm like, well, are they helping you teach you how to breathe? Or she's like, oh yeah, we have a breathing class. And I'm like, good. At least no, actually it's called a birthing class now. It's not a breathing class. It's called a birthing class. Yeah. And so, you know, at least they're still teaching that, because I think that that's really important as a couple to go into that delivery room, or, you know, even a single mom, to be able to understand that you can, you know, control some of that pain and that focus. And, you know, Mother Nature is pretty amazing though, because that child pops out and the pain just dissipates. It's like, where did that go? Definitely some hypnosis going on in the birthing room.
And that's a brilliant example. That's of pain relief. How breathing can be so much of a help when you suffer from pain, not only during birth, but other like pain, chronic pain. And it's sort of like I had my personal experience with that in my early 20s. I developed appendicitis, and the pain was like, you know, 11 out of 10. I went to the emergency room, and you know this effect when the doctors have on you, when like the pain goes away, the closer you are to the emergency room. Yep. And I came there and it was kind of okay. I could feel it, but I'm like, no, I don't know what's the fuss about. Maybe I should go home. and then they sent me home. They did send me home, and the pain came back. And before we returned, I started doing this breathing. And it was amazing how well I could control the pain. Yeah, it's just mind blowing. Yeah, so there are so many applications, and yes, during birth, yeah, amazing.
I think a lot of nurses have learned this, but you know, if you are a nurse in the medical field, you know, helping and teaching people to learn how to breathe is very crucial. You can definitely be that saving angel, you know, when things start getting a little out of control, of just focusing on the breathing. I know in the nursing, or in the delivery room, they really focus on that. At least ours, you know, always did. But you know, it's like I said, one of the ways that, you know, I was able to do for deliveries without, you know, any epidural or any drugs. And the only reason, just clarifying, truth and honest, I had a bad gallbladder, and the doctor, they wanted it to be taken out like after the second one. Yeah, kind of started developing bad. And when I was first pregnant, I actually developed a cancerous tumor on my parotid gland right up here. And so when I went under the knife, I didn't come out of the anesthesia. So it really scared me. So like, I did not want to go under again. And eventually 17 years later, I did get my gallbladder out, but they were able to do the laser, and, you know, was really able to not have to have that intense I still was the last one out of the day surgery. So, but yeah, no, I think breathing is extremely important. And, I just want to thank you, Julia, for coming in and speaking into this. I know that, this is your career path, and I love everything that you're doing. It's always a joy to see everything that you have going on. And, I just, being that centered and bringing down, that breathing, because we can all breathe, like we don't, and it doesn't matter where you're at. And if things get stressful, you can just, take some deep breaths. And, I love the, the knowledge of, breathing in through the nose and, for 4 seconds, and then breathing out for 6. And I think I was reversed. Like I was like, wait a minute, that's not what I do. So now I'm like, that was the other thing. I was sitting here. I'm like, I think I'm doing it wrong. As long as you're breathing, it's not wrong. But there's better ways of improving. So don't stop breathing.
Keep breathing.
Yeah. Great. Is there any final things that you want to leave anybody with? And then your socials will be in the links that we supply here. So if anybody wants to get in touch with Julia, where's the best place? And any closing words that you'd like to leave today?
Yeah, thank you. So the best place is, well, there is website, oxygenrevolution.com.au and oxygen_revolution on Instagram. And please get in touch if you feel like it. And I will leave you with a quote, again, reinforcing how important the nasal breathing is. And it is: breathe in through your mouth as much as you eat with your nose. Okay.
I love it. Great. Well, thank you, Julia. And just an honor to have you here again. And we will definitely have you on again. And until then, take care.
Thank you.